continue to ignore them. You don't listen. You don't turn. And then he comes down to verse 8 and he says, therefore, the Lord Almighty says this, because you have not listened to my words, I will summon all the peoples of the north and my servant Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, declares the Lord, and I will bring them against this land and its inhabitants and against all the surrounding nations. I will completely destroy them and make them an object of horror and scorn and an everlasting ruin. Now, see, people say, there'll be some that will say today, well, but, that was a passage, and that was God talking to his covenant people. So that doesn't go for us. I've heard that before. That's nonsense. Because, you see, if we're going to do that, then we don't need to follow any of the word. I mean, Paul's telling the new church, we can take some of those things and pick and choose if we want to. But the same, it's the same God from the first chapter here to the last chapter here. And this is a continuum. We don't choose, I just like the New Testament, or I just like the Old Testament. No, it's all one continuum that gives us tremendous insight into our Creator. And one of the things, because of that, see, that was a nation that was God's light, his chosen people to be his light among the world. Well, when we first started this series, we looked at our founding. And our founding came because of religious persecution in Britain. And you had those separatists. And that's what they called them. And they said, we got to go somewhere where we can have freedom to worship. Freedom of religion. And of course, we saw that come to fruition through the Constitution and et cetera and so forth. And so when you have a founding start on the foundings or the foundation of Scripture, like we did, we pointed that out, the Mayflower Compact. I mean, it started from the beginning. This and we were known as a Christian nation. That didn't mean we didn't make mistakes. No. It didn't mean that evil hadn't come among us. No. Doesn't mean that. But it means that the foundation, and there's no other nation that I know of in history. I thought of Rome one time, the eastern part, Constantinople, but that was a forced religion. Okay, we're all going to be Christians. See, that's not by movement of heart or, the desire to choose the one true God. And so I don't listen to those excuses. All I know is this, that if God did it to a nation, that was to represent him, and we had the foundations of a Christian nation, that we all honored God, where there was prayer in school, and there's scripture all over the United States, capitals and capitol buildings and so forth and so on. There's no doubt that we were founded upon Christian principles, and that to uphold those morals, it kind of ebbed and flowed through time, just like it did here. So I don't back away from saying that, that verse can very well be applied to us as well. Terrorist groups have been in America for decades. I mean, they've been around for, countless decades. And I'm not going to cover all the terrorist groups. I'm going to cover about 3, if you will. I'm not going to cover them. Today we have what's referred to by FBI as domestic right-wing terrorist groups, and what they do is they promote racial supremacy, and they embrace anti-government, anti-regulatory beliefs. I mean, they're just anti-everything. When it comes to government, they're anti-everything. And then you've got the domestic left-wing group. So they promote a revolutionary socialist doctrine. They promote against capitalism and imperialism. Alive and well today. We see a lot of that group in action today. And then we have all kinds of stuff in between. Different size groups. They've all got their agendas and so forth. But those are probably the 2 main, the far right group, that they're just anti-government everything. Then you got the far left group, and they're just a socialistic. There were 3 deaths, 183 injured. 2014, New York subway. 4 police officers were attacked with a hatchet. No deaths, but there were 5 injured. These are all Islamists. It's public record. There was no doubt. Most of them hollered their Islamic statement. 2015, one civilian kills 5 military personnel on 2 different bases. Also that year, San Bernardino, a couple killed 14 people, injured 22 others. 2016, Omar Mateen kills 49, injures 53 at a nightclub. We remember that one. 2016, New York and in New Jersey, there were 3 bombs exploded in different areas between those 2 states, with 31 being injured. 2016, Ohio State University. Remember that the Muslim Somali used a car to injure 11 people. Also in Lower Manhattan in 2017, man drives a pickup into runners and cyclists on a bicycle path. Now, this doesn't even count the attacks on Americans on foreign soils. Okay, all different, around the globe. Or on the seas, when they would literally attack U.S. ships. Doesn't even count those. So we're just talking about Islamic attacks on American soil. And you see, I didn't have the one, what was that one in Tulsa, where the guy goes in and kills one of his co-workers in that company up there. I didn't even cover that one. So this is not exhaustive. But it's the ones that mainly made the headlines. See? Exactly. So there's a lot of them that's not even covered. A lot of them didn't even make the headlines. Let me give you some other information. In 1996, Bill Clinton became the first U.S. president to hold an Islamic dinner at the White House to celebrate the end of Ramadan, the Muslim month-long dawn to dusk fast. The celebration includes the raising of hands and shouting Allahu Akbar, which declares that Allah, the moon god, do your study, is the greatest. 1996. In 2000, the Republican National Convention became the first U.S. presidential convention to open with a Muslim prayer to Allah, the moon god. You see how far we drifted? Remember I talked on the second part, the turning away from God? This is how far it's got in America. In 2007, that was the first time the Quran was used to swear into office a new congressman, Keith Ellison. And I can hear it now. Well, but he's Muslim, so shouldn't he be able to do that? Well, I say no, not in America. This is America. This is not a Muslim country. I might get emails and all kinds of stuff, but that's okay. You got to stand for truth. No matter what truth may bring you. Be careful. Are you willing? Be careful. Don't jump on that too quick. In 2009, Hudson County Superior Court Judge Joseph Charles, and this is all public information, he ruled in SD versus MJR. Now watch this close, or listen close, that the Muslim ex-husband repeatedly had sexually assaulted his Muslim ex-wife both before and after their divorce. However, following testimony from the Muslim man's imam, which is basically the mosque leader, I guess you could say pastor, but imam, now listen, from the testimony of the guy's imam, the judge denied the ex-wife's request for a permanent restraining order against her ex-husband, citing the Muslim man's belief and practices. Ladies, you'll be glad to know, and you ought to be really glad that you're not Muslim, because it is allowed for a Muslim man to rape his Muslim wife. It's in the book. You'll just have to read it. And here's what the judge said, quote, "The court believes that defendant, the man, was operating under his belief that it is, as the husband, his desire to have sex when and where he wanted to was something that was consistent with his practices." End quote. I'm going to tell you right now, we do not use laws of foreign countries to dictate laws in this country. We do not do that. I don't care what judge it is. I don't care if they're on the Supreme Court. You do not use foreign laws to make decisions of the laws that we already have on the books. We use our laws. And I'm telling you, oh, it gets better. I'm going to get on that soapbox today. You just go ahead and get your picture camera ready, because I'm going to get on that soapbox. All right, show that next slide. Put that list of banks up there. You're going to like this one. This is kind of a new one to me. I didn't know this. Listen to me. To attract and manage Middle Eastern Muslim wealth, An increasing number of American financial institutions have created Sharia-compliant banking. These banks make a profit through equity participation, which requires a borrower to give the bank a share in their profits rather than paying interest. These annual profits can then be used and given to Islamic organizations designated by the Sharia compliance advisors, and I'm sure that's probably a board, like a bank board, many of whom are members of the Muslim Brotherhood. You recognize any banks on that list? Oh, that's a small list. I couldn't even, I actually cut it down just so I could just get one slide. That really perturbed me. You probably don't know about this either. In 2004, all public information, folks. All public. 2004, the FBI raided a home in Falls Church, Virginia, seizing documents that contain the archives of the Muslim Brotherhood in America. The seized documents were classified until federal prosecutors introduced them into evidence in the case of United States versus the Holy Land Foundation, the largest terrorist financing trial in the history of the U.S. In November of 2008, a jury returned unanimous guilty verdicts on 108 separate counts. CAIR, C-A-I-R, stands for Council for American Islamic Relations. How many of you have ever heard of CAIR? You have today, and you better remember, there's CAIR chapters in every state. CAIR and other Muslim Brotherhood front organizations were included in the case as unindicted. They weren't indicted, but they were included in the case as unindicted co-conspirators. Documents found stated, better listen, documents found stated that the goal of the Muslim Brotherhood is to overthrow the government and replace the Constitution with Sharia law. One of the documents admitted into evidence contained this quote, "The Muslim Brotherhood must understand that their work in America is a kind of a grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their own hands." End quote. Okay, are you hearing me? This is public information. That was a piece that was in a court case. This is not made up stuff, folks. And if you think I'm picking on, don't even go there. You'll be demonstrating ignorance. I don't mean that personally, but I just mean as a fact. I've known this for many, many years. When I ran for Congress back in 12, this is public. You can go look this up. It's still out there on YouTube somewhere. We had a forum, an open forum, and it was live TV. Me and 5 other candidates. One of the questions I told Tom there, and I said, I never will forget this. I don't remember their questions they asked, but I never will forget this one. And to my knowledge, to my memory, they didn't tell us what questions they were going to ask. And they said, what do you believe is the greatest threat to America today? And I said, the Islamic movement is the greatest threat to America. We're not through yet. Hang on. So I just wonder, how's that been working for us? See, we don't ever, okay, forget the news. You'll never see this on the news. You're not even going to really see much of this in printed articles. Some of it was, but is today. Islamic groups, including Muslim Brotherhood's Council on American Islamic Relations, CAIR, have penetrated the highest levels of the U.S. government. Now, what I'm fixing to say, you can get up in arms if you want to, but it's just a fact. Top Obama Homeland Security Senior Advisor. Most of this happened during the Obama deal. Now, let me just go ahead and say for the record, Obama was a Muslim. I know he tried to say he was a Christian, and I say it based on, go watch the videos. Just watch the videos of his speeches. I mean, he talked about it. I don't have to try to, gosh, I wonder. Go watch the videos, folks. This is public information. But no one knows it, or very few. He was a Muslim. Here was someone he appointed. He was the Homeland Security Senior Fellow Advisor. This is all public. Mohammed, I can't pronounce his last name. But you'll probably remember this statement. In 2013, here's a Senior Homeland Security Advisor. And he made the statement, it's all documented, that the USA is an Islamic country. And if you go read up on that, and you add, and what they did, they went back to, so what do you mean by that? And he never clarified. At that time, he had counterpart Muslim advisors at the U.S. Department of Justice, the FBI, and the Department of Homeland Security. Now, what I couldn't find, are they still there today? I don't know. But I do know that during almost his full term of 8 years, they were in these key positions. And y'all remember some of this stuff. I do. During Obama's presidency, members of the Muslim Brotherhood and the U.S. government had security clearances and were advising not only on outreach programs to Muslims in the U.S., but also classified counterterrorism programs that were supposed to protect Americans from Islamic terrorism. And here's what they did. Here's what their achievements included. Number one, they deleted Islam's violent nature and past from FBI counterterrorism training manuals. I don't know if you remember hearing that. That did come out in an article, and I remember, in other words, in the FBI training manual, they was taking out all the bad stuff. Anything that would reflect bad on Islam, they were taking out. Number two, blocking the planned indictments of CARE and other Muslim Brotherhood organizations in America listed as unindicted co-conspirators of the Holy Land Foundation, which is known, they're financiers of Hamas. That's public information. They know that the Muslim Brotherhood finances Hamas. Terrorist groups, they're one of the biggest targets in their scope is America. As also in the writings that they uncovered from the Muslim Brotherhood themselves. Number three, in the Homeland Security, they required written communication from and between government agencies to be more Islam friendly. I remember that too. It came out. It snuck out. Well, so much for that. There's another key area to infiltrate, and that's our schools. I'll give you just a few of these. According to billionbibles.org, Sharia law has been advancing in American institutions, including public schools. And I have verified these. This is all public information. You've already said, I'm going to say it again because I want you to understand I'm not just reeling off what I want to talk about. An increasing number of American public schools with Muslim students are now holding Islamic prayers towards Mecca, while American public universities continue to build Muslim-only washing facilities. You know, this is America. I'm sorry that we don't accommodate everything you need. This is America. We always use the same bathrooms and same washing facilities. And listen, you say, well, wait a minute, Pastor. Isn't that being kind of mean or, wanting to serve another? Well, I tell you what. Oh, boy. Let me get on this other soapbox. Just like the language deal. Once we stop requiring people to learn English, then it's got to all go. If you're not going to do that, then it's a free-for-all. And if you're going to allow one to dictate this, then you got to allow them all to dictate according to them. You see, that's why if you go back in the original deal, and we talk about remember what was America was always, and it's true, refer to a melting, okay, but it's one pot. It's the same pot. And when you go back and you read and you look and when the immigrants and we all, in that essence, we come from immigrants. And when immigrants came over, they were excited to become Americans. And they came into our system and became and understood and learned English. And you know, they're tested today. They have to learn some history. That's a good thing. But see, once you start allowing one to do it, then you got to allow them all to do it. What about the Chinese? Mexicans? I mean, just Portuguese. You got to let everyone do it. And if you don't hold the line, well, this is America. This is what we do. This is what we were founded. You don't have to live here. It's okay. You're not going to make us mad. But you're welcome to live here. We live here. We welcome you in. Through the proper way, and proper channels and the legal channels. All for it. Support it all day long. 2013, Skokie School District 68 in Illinois became the first U.S. school district to celebrate the end of Ramadan, a Muslim high day, as a school holiday in lieu of Veterans Day. In 2014, Rocky Mountain High School in Fort Collins, Colorado became the first high school to recite the Pledge of Allegiance in Arabic, replacing one nation under God with one nation under Allah. What has happened to our public schools? Many of your teachers, retired teachers, blah, blah. What's happened? And that doesn't mean that every teacher, agrees with that. But I'm telling you that there's such a wave. And see, this is where when we sing about standing up for Jesus, we better start standing up for our country. But no one wants to be mocked. No one wants to create a wave. No one wants to be seen as someone, I'm not, against something. There's all, and all that garbage came out years ago when it was talking about Canada. Well, don't tell me what you're against. Tell me what you're for. Well, don't tell me what you're against too, because there's a lot of stuff that wants to overflood us and ruin us. So I need to know, are you against that? Are you against this? Are you against this? No, go ahead and tell me what you're against. And then tell me what you're for. Listen to what's happening. Listen to because when you start changing the discourse and you start changing the conversation, then it's a free-for-all. It just becomes a free-for-all. You're going to love this one. This was new to me. Not surprising, but new. American universities. Since 2012, Qatar is I think it's over there by Saudi Arabia, I believe. Qatar has donated $376 million to Carnegie Mellon University, $351 million to Georgetown, $340 million to Northwestern University, $275 million to Texas A&M, $41 million to Virginia Commonwealth University, and lesser amounts to about 24 other institutions. Saudi Arabia has donated $83 million to MIT. MIT, isn't that interesting? $75 million to George Washington University, $59 million to George Mason University, $31 million to Harvard, $30 million to the University of Kansas, and millions more to about 58 other universities. Other large gifts to U.S. universities come from the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Iraq, Turkey, Pakistan, Syria, and Lebanon. Among Islamic states, Qatar and Saudi Arabia are perhaps the foremost evangelizers. Both promote a puritanical and theocratic version of Islam that, as the Clarion Report observes, inspires, I quote, inspires Sunni jihadists, you know what I'm trying to say? Jihadists is what I'm trying to say, around the world, end quote. The Qatari government is a strong supporter of Hamas and other terrorist groups. And money is flooding in the hundreds of millions to American universities And I'll guarantee you, if you don't think that people give special treatment, I don't care if it's individuals, I don't care if it's organizations, I don't care if it's countries, when you get that kind of money coming into any type of institution like that, who do you think you're going to suck up to? This one, you guys ready back there, Jerry? I'm going to show this video clip. I want you to, this is I think it's about 5 minutes, but I thought it's worth sharing. Something else that shows something. This is up in Dearborn, Michigan. I don't know if you kept up with that. Dearborn, Michigan is basically a Muslim city now, all under Sharia law. This is on American soil. You heard me. I said Dearborn, Michigan. That's one of our states. This little clip kind of gives you an idea what's going on up there. This has been going on. I don't know exactly when it started. I'm going to say, probably at least 15 years ago. It's been going on quite a while. And it's not improving in the sense of it's not returning to American citizen control. It's not doing that. So let's see what's going up in Dearborn.
Most people don't even know this. You go into places like Dearborn, Michigan, you don't feel like you're in America anymore.
Right now we're heading towards the east side of Dearborn. You'll see the culture shift where you won't feel that you're in the United States any longer.
How long have you lived in Dearborn?
All my life.
Seriously, what happened to all the American businesses around here?
They come in to buy the strip mall. They move the previous owners out. They increase the rent dramatically to force.
They force them out.
They force people out.
And then they put similar
businesses.
but with a Arabic tone.
Yes.
You think a lot of people here voted for Obama?
Of course they did.
Yeah? Why? Why do you think they voted for Obama?
The entitlements, all the health care. Some of these guys come in and have up to 4 wives. When they file for the bridge cards, EBT cards, they are bringing the other 3 as extended family members. When we're going grocery shopping, you see these young Arab ladies, girls, with their kids, getting on Range Rovers, using their EBT bridge cards to pay for the groceries. I'm actually in the medical equipment business, so sometimes when they come in my office, they're in designer clothes, carrying Prada purses, pulling out their Medicaid cards for their health care. And knowing the addresses and knowing where they live, I don't understand how they're getting welfare assistance, driving $60,000, $70,000 vehicles and living in $250,000, $350,000 homes.
Immigrants from the Middle East represent the fastest growing immigrant demographic in the United States. And over the past 3 years, the Obama administration has taken in more immigrants from the Middle East than Mexico and Central America combined. And it's about to get worse. 7 million Syrians have applied to come here to the United States as refugees. Imagine the strain on the welfare system. Today, 36% of Americans claim to earn less than $30,000 per year. But in the Muslim community, it's up to 45%.
5 or 6 years ago, was it anything close to where it is right now?
Absolutely not. The population's probably doubled in this area in Dearborn Heights as far as the Middle Eastern population.
Over the last 5-6 years?
5-6 years. You see more radicalization,
Yeah.
Arabs moving in.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Like they're coming here, but they don't want to mix in with Americans.
Right, they're not mixing in. They're not learning the language.
Reuter Street? Do you know where Reuter Street is? You don't know where Reuter Street is? Thank you.
They're not really becoming Americanized. In the high school where you have a large Muslim population, they have to serve halal food. The non-Muslim, it's actually two menus, one for the non-Muslims and one for the Muslims.
So now, what's the impact on that?
That's an increased cost to the school systems.
You never see American flags?
Never.
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 Why is it that the Muslim community is not blending in with the rest of American society?
Because this is what they are being told in mosques across the United States, Dennis. And part of what they're teaching them in the mosque is do not assimilate with the Americans. They are your enemies.
One of the things that bothered me is that as I traveled through one street after the next, and I'm talking about many streets, I did not see homes with an American flag waving outside. Is there any chance we have that Muslims will turn around and start to blend in?
No, there is no chance. We are seeing a reverse, actually, instead of them blending in, instead of assimilation.
If you were to take somebody, like an old neighbor who used to live in Dearborn but moved away, and you were to drop them back into Dearborn, would they know where they were?
Not really. It's completely remade.
All right. All right. So, what do you think the deal with that is?
The flag?
Yeah.
They've been here a long time. That's a statement too.
That flag's making a statement?
Yeah.
What is the statement?
That that's an American.
Yeah.
This is
America.
All right. If you believe that Islam is a religion of peace, you've not done your research. I've actually got a Quran. I got one several years ago. I haven't read it completely, but I read a bunch of it. And it's not a religion of peace. The majority, if not all, religions teach to walk as their founder did. I mean, the founder is your role model, right? Well, Islamic terrorists are doing exactly what their founder, Muhammad, did during his life. Because as the Quran permits Muslims to lie, this presents a problem with those living here in the United States. And so, let me say this, be very clear. All this information today is not to create a vehement hate for Muslims. No. But Jesus said we are to be wise as the serpent. I need to know who my enemy is. Let me say it this way, Muslim teaching is not our friend. It's certainly not God. It's not the one true God for certain, and that can be another study another day. But as I've referenced with this, especially from 9/11, and I don't know if you all remember it, but when that happened, and I know that Trump said something about it, and he's already going, and they said that's not true. Well, it was true. There were Muslims in this nation that celebrated the fall of those two buildings, and I remember that because I remember vividly seeing it on TV, and they were showing this group, and they were cheering and raising and blah, blah, blah. Now, let me say this about the Muslims here in the United States. I don't know. I'm not. Let me just say it this way. When I look at what the Quran teaches, and I look at Muhammad and what he did and his actions, and he's supposed to be the role model. Well, then why isn't all the Muslims, all these that you see, even in Dearborn, why are they not denouncing Hamas, or I've never seen it. Because if the media wanted us to be handy-handy with them and friendly, then they would show that. Even if it was a lie, they would still show it. But they've never shown anything like that. And so I don't know. Here's my conclusion. I don't know if they just don't understand their own book. Now there's a lot of truth to that. I can take a section of Christians that don't even understand the Bible. So that part's going to be true. And you'll read stuff and say, well, you know, the Muslims here have kind of been westernized to some degree, and they really don't know their roots, blah, blah, blah. There's some truth to that. So number one, they either don't understand their own book, or they don't believe their own book. Or so those that see all this extremism, that they call it, well, that's not what the book says. That's not what our leader did. Well, it is what your leader did. And that's what they're doing. They're following it. So they just don't believe their own book. Or they're silent for a reason when it comes to denouncing Islamic terrorism. I don't know which it is. So what's my response to them? Well, my response to them is I'm going to be wise as a serpent. And I know, I've heard the stories. I've been around Muslim before, and great people, most of them nice people, and they're my neighbor and love their kids. And I get all that. I get all that. But I'm not going to be ignorant of the facts. I don't know where they stand, but I'm not going to be ignorant of the facts. And it's a known fact, just as you saw here, that when you have tons of them coming in, that's what the Muslim Brotherhood is all about. We already know what their bottom line goal is. And we also know, you can go look up, this all information, you can look up how American citizens, even in the number of kids we're having nowadays, has declined. You know, I think last I saw, I think it's actually below 2. So like 1.9 or something, maybe 2.1. How do you get that 0.1? That's another story. But then you have Muslims that it's quite a bit higher than that. I mean, think about it. It's not rocket science. If you want to take over something, just do it with sheer numbers. And so it's happening. Totally in Dearborn. Now there's some other ones. Now you've got, at least two at least two that I can think of off the top of my head. You've got two, you say, well, what's so bad about that? Well, look at their statements and their votes. You got 2 Muslims in Congress that are very vocal about their Muslim beliefs in Congress. So I want to make you aware of this, because when I think about, is America going bust? Well, it's it's on its way. Well, what do we do about it? Isn't that the main question? You know, I got all this information, and there's probably some there you didn't know. Maybe all of it you did know. Maybe none of it you knew, but you know now. And so the bottom line question is, well, what do we do about this? What can we do? Well, I guess I could probably give you a long list of all the, we can do this, 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 and this. But I'm just about basically convinced that it's not that we shouldn't do some of that stuff, but really, that's not going to change anything. The only thing that's going to change anything for us to be on our knees before God, asking for God's mercy and asking for God to deal with His enemies. And I'll show you a study on that one of these days. And when you go through Scripture, we're supposed to love our enemies. You need to go do your word studies. You need to go do your scriptural study from beginning to end. David talks about enemies and asking God to deal with his enemies. God talks about having enemies of God, and David references about God's enemies. An enemy of God is the one that absolutely denies, disparages, mocks, scorns God. That person is an enemy of God. Those that have, the Bible talks about that they've gone so far that their hearts have become seared, they're not turning back. And he was a pastor. I had a gentleman one time, his wife and kids came to church. He never came. In fact, I never even met him. And when he was dying, he was at home. He made no uncertain terms to his family. I don't want to see your preacher. I don't want to hear anything about Jesus. I don't want anything about the Bible. And that's extremely sad. And there's a man that when he died, he busted the gates of hell wide open. That's a seared heart. For whatever reason, however he got there. That's an enemy of God. These are enemy of God's. Those that it's one thing to proclaim another religion. It's another thing to destroy a nation because of another religion. And I know we go back and, boy, this can get deep real quick. And so we can talk about that too. I had someone talk to me about that. Well, what about Canaan? My gosh, people, that was 400 years of God's mercy and grace. How do we know it to be true? Well, number one, when he told Abraham, he said their sin is not yet full. And even when they went into the land, now let's see, who was that? What was that lady's name? Her and her family was saved. Rahab? You remember that name? Remember that name? Why? Because she said, by her own words, she said, we heard about what your God did in Egypt. That was 40 years earlier. It's almost like we've been waiting. We've been waiting for you. She was a believer. And for that she was saved. You see, what people understand is God gives his mercy God, and patience is unfathomable. Think about your own life. Why does he can have patience with me? Really, Lord? Your patience is just, gosh. So don't ever get frustrated with those type of questions. You have to study. Well, let's close today as we always do, but let's close with a different understanding. Let's come down here and let's bend a knee before God and just, boy, knowing more and more what we know about what's happened in America, what God did his own covenant people. Oh, don't think he won't do it to America. Don't think he's not doing it to America. You know, we covered, remember I just showed you some real quick clips here a few weeks ago, just from disasters and destruction and all that kind of stuff and droughts. And yeah, they've all been around. Oh boy, they sure seem to be increasing just a little bit more. It's not going to be a big wave. You're not going to see it like that. When the prophets kept trying to tell Israel, that was over a long period of time. And they just couldn't see it. Didn't want it.